everyone, my name is Emily Hoopmaker, and today we will be discussing the Uniform Multi-State Pharmacy Jurisprudence Examination. The learning objectives for today's presentation are to be able to describe the purpose and structure of the Uniform MPJE, understand the timeline availability, as well as identify the 4 core competency areas of the Uniform MPJE. And we'll also be comparing the Uniform MPJE with state-specific MPJE formats. The Uniform MPJE was developed to create a standardized national pharmacy jurisprudence examination to assess the legal knowledge of pharmacists across state lines. The National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, or NABP, developed this format to address concerns regarding state-specific MPJEs. For example, pharmacist shortages has caused the need for pharmacists to adapt to practice in multiple states and jurisdictions. Historically, this has required pharmacists to sit for individual MPJEs and pass these exams to obtain licensure in each jurisdiction. The Uniform MPJE was developed to address this issue and help state boards of pharmacy to streamline licensure. The Uniform MPJE also addresses other concerns, such as the fact that not every state pharmacy board requires pharmacist candidates to take the MPJE for licensure, although there is a need to assess pharmacist candidate core competency for their knowledge of state and federal law. Also, single state MPJE writing and review activities require significant board resources that not every state can accommodate. Also, many state-specific laws are similar, if not identical, leading to redundancy for pharmacist applicants when sitting for multiple MPJEs. The purpose of the Uniform MPJE is to assess the knowledge of concepts and principles of state laws that are universal to all jurisdictions. The Uniform MPJE will also cover federal law, but it should not be considered a federal law exam per the NABP. The NABP determined that testing the competency in state and federal pharmacy law and ensuring streamlined licensure pathways are 2 goals that can be accomplished together, thus the Uniform MPJE format. This MPJE format is designed to be an additional tool utilized by individual state boards of pharmacy to assess a pharmacist candidate's pharmacy law knowledge, and the state boards will have the option to utilize this exam or to continue to administer their current state-specific MPJEs. The Uniform MPJE is being launched in spring of 2026, with the first test takers to be expected in June of that same year. Currently, the outline is available on the NABP website and will be utilized on the exam. Question 1. Which of the following is false regarding the Uniform MPJE? Select all that apply. A. The Uniform MPJE is strictly considered a federal exam. B. State boards of pharmacy are not required to adopt the Uniform MPJE. C. The current MPJE format requires pharmacists to take multiple law exams to be licensed in multiple states. Or D. The Uniform MPJE is designed to be an additional tool to assess pharmacist candidates' pharmacy law knowledge. Please take a moment to pause the video and read through and select your answer choice. The correct answer to this question is A, as the statement is false. Answer A is false, as a Uniform MPJE is not considered a federal law exam, although it will contain federal law information. Options B, C, and D are correct statements, as state boards are not required to opt into the Uniform MPJE format and can continue to use their current state-specific MPJEs. Similarly, current format of the MPJE that are administered state by state requires pharmacists to take the MPJE in each state they wish to be licensed. And the Uniform MPJE is designed to be an additional tool that state-specific board of pharmacies can use to assess pharmacist candidate pharmacy law knowledge. The Uniform MPJE will utilize questions that are classified into a specific competency domain. There are 4 core competency domains identified per the NABP. The domains are 1. Pharmacy and pharmacist practice, 2. Medication use process, including topics such as prescribing, transcribing and documenting, dispensing, administering, and monitoring of medications, content domain 3, regulatory authority and legal obligations, and content domain 4, pharmacy operations. The exam will be approximately 100 questions, which each domain is given a predetermined percentage of questions. We'll go into a little bit more of what percentages look like in these different domains. Domain 1, pharmacy and pharmacist practice. This domain is divided into Subdomains A through F, and the content of this domain represents about 30% of the Uniform MPJE. Subdomain A focuses on the practice of pharmacy definition. This will include topics such as scope of authority and practice, collaborative practice and other delegative authorities, and limitations or restrictions on pharmacy practice. Subdomain B looks at non-pharmacist personnel, and this will examine the scope, counseling, licensure, and supervision of other pharmacy staff, such as technicians, and how it relates to pharmacy law. Subdomain C, pharmacy and pharmacist practice, will cover adulterated or misbranded medications. This subdomain covers important laws regarding medication recalls, counterfeit medications, drug importation and expiration dates, and the Drug Supply Chain Security Act, or DSCSA, which was enacted in 2023 to enhance security and traceability of prescription drugs distributed in the U.S. Subdomain D examines the federal regulatory standards of pharmacy and pharmacist practice. This domain will cover laws related to patient-specific prescription requirements, anticipatory compounding, and essential copies of commercial products. This subdomain will also cover laws related to the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, or NIOSH, as well as the Occupational Safety and Health Administration and how these rules affect pharmacy practice. Continuing on, Subdomain E will look at the United States Pharmacopoeia, or USP, standards on the compounding of drugs and hazardous materials. This subdomain follows the USP guidelines and will encompass topics such as beyond use dating, record keeping, competency training, and environmental testing. The last subdomain covered in Domain 1 focuses on laws regarding security of patient health information. This will encompass the various rules and regulations about patient health information, including the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, or HIPAA, which protects patient privacy, improves insurance portability, and standardizes electronic health transactions. Domain 2 examines laws and regulations regarding medication use processes. This domain will be divided into subdomains A through C and represent approximately 30% of the Uniform MPJE. Subdomain A looks at the requirements for issuing prescriptions and medication orders, including those of controlled substances. Specifically, this will include topics such as prescription validity, including who has the authority to write prescriptions, what prescriptions require, as well as the concept of corresponding responsibility. Corresponding responsibility is a term that outlines that both the prescriber and the pharmacist share legal responsibility to ensure that prescriptions for controlled substances are issued for a legitimate medical purpose and written by a practitioner who is acting in the usual course of their professional practice. Ultimately, pharmacists are considered the final gatekeepers of dispensing controlled substances, and they are required to evaluate prescriptions for red flags, verify the legitimacy of the prescription, and have the right to refuse to dispense controlled substances if potential concerns remain unsolved. Failure to uphold the corresponding responsibility can result in civil, regulatory, or criminal penalties, even if the prescriber insists the prescription is valid. This subdomain will also examine prescription changes and emergency prescriptions and emergency refills. Subdomain B examines the laws relating to dispensing medications, again, including those of controlled substances. This domain will include law questions related to counseling, transfers, recalls, returns and reuse, drug product selection, DURs, fills, refills, and partial fills. It will also look at the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program, or PDMP, and its requirements. Finally, this subsection will also examine pharmacy and manufacturer labeling, which includes over-the-counter medications and pharmacy education. Subdomain C of Domain 2 will look at federal and universal state laws related to the administration of medication, including requirements for adverse event reporting. Domain 3 covers laws relating to regulatory authority and legal obligations. This domain is divided into subdomains A through C and represents about 20% of the Uniform MPJE. Subdomain A looks at the roles of regulatory authorities, including topics related to authority of these regulatory bodies, inspections, and discipline. This subdomain will look at the federal regulatory bodies such as the Federal and Drug Administration, or FDA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, or DEA, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Subdomain A will also look at universal state laws related to state boards of pharmacy and state departments of health. Importantly, subdomain B will focus on controlled substances, including laws related to ordering and order forms and the process of deregistration and the power of attorney. This subdomain will also look at laws related to controlled substance disposal, record keeping, inventory, and theft and loss. Subdomain C tests on liability and malpractice and the rules and laws associated with the regulatory bodies. Domain 4, pharmacy operations, will be divided into subdomains A through C and represent approximately 20% of the Uniform MPJE. Subdomain A looks at pharmacy operations and the laws related to pharmacy licensure, registration, and certification. Subdomain B focuses on pharmacy operation technology, including record keeping and automation. This will look at topics such as federal and universal state laws related to e-prescribing, prescription faxing, and shared services such as chain pharmacies. Finally, subdomain C will examine the access, storage, handling, and security of pharmacy operations. Question 2. Which of the following is not a core content domain covered in the Uniform MPJE? Select all that apply. A. Pharmacy operations. B. Compounding and manufacturing. C. Pharmacy and pharmacist practice. D. Regulatory authority and legal obligations. E. Medication use process. Please take a moment to pause the video, read through all the answers, and select your choice. The correct answer to this question is B, compounding and manufacturing, as this is not a core content domain in the Uniform MPJE. There are 4 core contency domains in the Uniform MPJE, and these are pharmacy and pharmacist practice, medication use process, regulatory authority and legal obligations, and pharmacy operations. Each of these domains are divided into subdomains. Option B, compounding and manufacturing, is not a competency domain in itself, but laws related to this topic are addressed in the Uniform MPJE under Domain 1, Pharmacy and Pharmacist Practice, in which this domain covers USP standards for compounding. There are important key differences between the Uniform MPJE and the current state-run MPJE formats that pharmacist candidates should be aware of for when determining which exam is best for them. For instance, the Uniform MPJE is a standardized national exam that is produced by the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, while the current MPJE format are produced by individual state boards of pharmacy and tailored to their jurisdiction-specific laws. The content on these two MPJEs differ, as well as the Uniform MPJE examines federal and universal state laws, and the current state-administered MPJE focuses on federal and detailed state-specific laws. For example, the Minnesota MPJE focuses on federal law and Minnesota-specific pharmacy law, while the New Jersey MPJE focuses on federal and New Jersey state-specific laws. This leads us to the difference between the Uniform MPJE and state-run MPJE in terms of testing on specific state nuances. Unlike state-run MPJEs, the Uniform MPJE will not test on state-specific nuances. However, pharmacist candidates are still required to learn these laws. Ultimately, the goal of the state-specific MPJEs are to assess the knowledge of federal laws and the laws in that designated state, whereas the Uniform MPJE has a goal to streamline licensure and reduce redundancy, especially for pharmacists who may be required to sit for multiple MPJEs. Question 3. Which of the following is a key difference between the Uniform MPJE and the current MPJE format? A. The Uniform MPJE focuses on federal law and common states principles, while the current MPJE includes detailed state-specific laws. B. The current format of the MPJE is a standardized national exam accepted by all states. C. The Uniform MPJE includes state-specific laws for each jurisdiction. D. The current format of the MPJE allows pharmacists to take one exam for licensure in multiple states. Please take a moment, pause the video, and read through all the questions to select your choice. The correct answer to this question is A. The Uniform MPJE focuses on federal and common state principles, while the current MPJE includes detailed state-specific laws. This is a key difference in the two formats and something pharmacist candidates must consider when determining which MPJE to take. Option B is incorrect, as the current state-mediated MPJE is not a standardized national exam and is only accepted in which the state it is testing. Option C is incorrect, as the Uniform MPJE does not include state-specific laws and only tests on federal and universal state laws. Option D is also incorrect, as the current state-run MPJE does not allow pharmacists to take one exam for multiple states. If a pharmacist wishes to be licensed in another state, they are required to sit for and pass that state's MPJE. Ultimately, the understanding of the principles and differences of the two MPJE formats are important for pharmacists and pharmacist candidates to consider when deciding which exam they want to take. Specifically, the key takeaways from this presentation are that the current formats of the MPJEs are produced by individual state boards of pharmacy and cover federal and state-specific laws. The goal of the Uniform MPJE is to reduce redundancy and streamline licensure for pharmacist candidates, especially those wishing to practice in multiple states. Also, the Uniform MPJE contains federal and universal state laws and is designed to be a standardized national exam that individual states can opt into, or they can continue their current MPJE format. Candidates who take the Uniform MPJE will still be required to learn state-specific laws not covered on the Uniform MPJE. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully this presentation helps guide your decision in which MPJE exam to take for your licensure. Thank you.